Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Clari-T Media. This is another broadcast of Clari-T Conversations. This is part 2 of the San Francisco Reparations Report Unlocked. Okay, I am presenting the draft report authored and created by the San Francisco African American Reparations Advisory Committee. That committee has worked very hard, diligently, focused for over a year now to put together this draft report that they will present to the San Francisco Board of Supervisors and to the San Francisco Mayor, Honorable Mayor London Breed. They are scheduled to present this draft report on March 14th, I believe. And earlier in the afternoon, there will be a rally held on the steps of City Hall in San Francisco to just get the community to come out and show your support, to be in solidarity for this idea and for this committee and the report and what is to come. And that is, in my opinion, I believe that the reparations legislation will pass. It will become law, and San Francisco will make history as the first metropolis or metropolitan city to receive reparations for its Black residents, for its longtime Black San Franciscan or San Francisco residents, I should say. Okay, so let me just turn down the music a little bit in the background. You know, machines don't work like we expect them to, so I was having a little bit of a problem with my music as I was starting the live here tonight. So thank you for standing by. For everyone out there who is standing by, thank you so much for joining me tonight. Tonight, again, we're having the second episode or the second reading of the draft report created by the San Francisco African American Reparations Advisory Committee. And I'd like to just recognize the chair of the committee, Mr. Eric McDonald, and the vice chair, Ms. Tanish Hollins. Okay, if any of you out there missed the first reading last night, you can go to my YouTube channel or scroll down here on the Facebook page or scroll down on the LinkedIn and you'll see the previous recording that happened yesterday evening at 5 p.m. I read the first 10 page. Let me see. Hold on. Let me get you. I read the first 10 pages of the report. Okay. The first 10 pages of the report I read. Okay. So we'll continue with the next round of pages. I'm going to read until I can't read anymore, and that'll be just after 6 p.m. Okay, so again, welcome to everyone. If you're tuning in on YouTube, if you're tuning in on Facebook, LinkedIn, wherever you are on any of my meta platforms, thank you for joining me. I'm Alicia Mayo, the founder of Clari-T Media. Clari-T Media is Black-owned, nonprofit multimedia. I provide multimedia services for folks in the Bay Area, particularly because it's where I'm at. But the multimedia services include digital marketing, brand and image consulting, public relations, crisis communications, broadcasting, live streaming, multi-camera productions. Whatever you need, name it, I can do that. Voiceover work, all of that I can do for you. And I can do it for you at little or no cost because I'm a nonprofit agency. I am sponsored by the San Francisco Dream Keeper Initiative. It is the only reason I'm here. The Dream Keeper Initiative. I owe everything to the Dreamkeeper Initiative. And it has been a pleasure to be a part of the storytelling and narrative shift cohort. I'm one of 3 in the cohort, in the inaugural cohort. This is the first year, or last year was the first year for the cohort. And we're into our second year. And so this is just part of my programming. I cover live streaming, and I try to be current on current events and other news that's happening around the Bay, particularly with Black San Franciscans. Okay. But if you have a story you'd like to share with me, please share your stories and any content that you think you'd like to share here on my platforms. I'm looking for my email here. I'll share the email. You can reach out to me, and I will do my best to work with you and get your stories on this platform. This platform is a nonprofit, public service kind of platform, but you know, productions are important. The way we present our content is really important to me. But please do reach out for advertising or to promote your businesses or your content right here on Clari-T Media Digital Marketing and Brand Strategy Solutions. You can reach me at Alicia Mayo at claritymedia.org. That's Alicia Mayo at claritymedia.org. I'll run that again. So for now, let me come on camera here and say hello to all of you. Thank you for joining me. Hi, everybody. Hello, I'm here. I am actually here in person. And I just want to say thank you again for joining me. Let me go to one other thing here I don't have up right now. There it is, my beautiful background that I made just for today's broadcast. Okay. All right. So we left off at the California State Reparations Task Force, Chapter 1. Okay. So I will begin, and let me pull up the pages actually so that you can read along with me here. Let's see. Okay, here we are. All right, so I will fast forward to page 12 for chapter 1, page 12, okay? 9, 10, 11, 12. Here we are. Okay. I'm going to minimize my screen just a little bit more so that you guys can see, or better yet, here we go. Okay, the California State Reparations Task Force, Chapter 1. In September 2020, Assembly Bill 3121, also known as AB 3121, was enacted in California to establish the task force to study and develop reparations proposals for African Americans. It's been authored by then Assembly member Dr. Shirley Weber. The bill sought to educate Californians about the history of slavery, its generational impact, and create a roadmap for how states may provide reparations to descendants of chattel slavery. This legislation is a significant change in truth and reconciliation, as no state has provided reparations for the legal institution of slavery or its legacy of anti-Black discrimination. Even after slavery was abolished, the racial caste system of white supremacy that justified the American slave trade remained intact and continued to relegate the Black community to the status of second-class citizens. As a result, African Americans continue to face disproportionate adversity in almost all sectors of life, as written in the California State Task Force Interim Report. Without a remedy specifically targeting to dismantle our country's racist foundations and heal the injuries inflicted by colonial and American governments, the badges and incidents of slavery will continue to harm African Americans in almost all aspects of life. And this is in that interim report, Executive Summary 6. The California Reparations Task Force was formed in the effort to accomplish 3 specific goals. Number 1, to study and develop reparations proposals for African Americans. Number 2, to recommend appropriate ways to educate the California public of the task force findings. And 3, to recommend appropriate remedies in consideration of the task force's findings. The task force is projected to be in place through July 2023 to complete their phased process. In June 1st, 2021, the panel approved that a report would be issued in 2 parts, including the following topics. Part 1, published June 1st, 2022. Institution of slavery, racial terror, disenfranchisement, housing segregation, education inequality, environmental inequality, arts and culture, family, health, discrimination in labor, criminal justice, gap in wealth accumulation. And that's part 1. And part 2 will address and will be published July 1st, 2023, if it hasn't been published by now. In part 2, they will cover the apology, international law justification. Let me go to the next page. Economic rationale, eligibility, summary of existing reparations schemes, recommendations, and how to educate the California population. So I've been receiving a lot of questions about this reparations report myself. And as you can see here, I'm doing my best to go through it with all of you. But I'm expected to be joined by the chair, Eric McDonald, and or Vice Chair Tanish Hollins, so that we can ask some of the questions as we read along, particularly about eligibility. That's been one of the biggest questions that people have had, and really how they're going to what is the whole formula for paying the reparations, and is it one formula used for everyone, or will it be individual case by case kind of scenarios? And so there are questions around all of the report and all of the particulars in all of the chapters and all of the areas, part 1 and part 2. Again, the first part of the report is expected to be published by June. Well, it was published, and this is what I'm reading. Okay. And part 2 is expected to be published by July 1st. Okay. So that's coming up. All right. So let's continue reading here. In June 2022, this task force produced an interim report that documents the institution of slavery, the condition and maintenance of a white supremacy racial caste system, its impact on African Americans, and begins to outline what is owed to Black descendants of chattel slavery. Let me go to the full page here. In order to educate the California public on both the national and statewide history of anti-Black racial discrimination, the report details white supremacist hatred, torture, lynching, and other forms of extreme racial violence towards Black people. The interim report focuses on anti-Black racist federal, state, and local government actions and negligence throughout American history and into the modern day. Citing international law and the United Nations, the report emphasizes that when a government is responsible for wrongful acts or negligence that causes injustice to a specific group of people, it has a duty to remedy those actions. Within the American court system, it is well recognized that parties must provide redress for the harms caused by their actions or omissions where there was a duty to act. This report houses quantitative data and qualitative narratives of the harm done to Black communities, the impact of racially discriminatory policy, and provides preliminary reparations recommendations to seek acknowledgement, redress, and closure for the existing injustice. That line where it states, uh, where it talks about the harms caused by their actions or admissions where there was a duty to act, that struck me. That is striking me because quite often that is what is the case. People just don't act. They don't say anything. And if you don't say anything, you are complicit in causing the harm. Let me repeat that because that is a huge part of what happens to Black folks still today. People stand by and don't say anything and they let the harm happen. Whatever it is, if it's discrimination at work, in an employment situation, if people are making racial comments or jokes at work and no one stands up to say anything besides the person that's being harmed, that goes on all too often, all too often. And so I'm glad that that's in here. I mean, those little things like that really do matter. Okay, it should matter. So I'll continue. In addition to listing harms that took place in the United States, the report focuses on California's responsibility in anti-Black discrimination, and in particular documents the multiple tactics that the San Francisco Bay Area used to discriminate against African Americans, as well as the historic and current conditions of the city's Black communities. In the early days of California's founding, Black Americans experienced crime without the ability to seek recourse through legal or the legal justice system. The California Supreme Court categorically barred any testimony from Black people back in those days. Facing discrimination from both codified laws and vigilante white citizens, Black communities left en masse in the early days of California's founding in search of peace and freedom. Between 1850 and 1860, nearly 200 Black families in San Francisco fled to the British colonies to avoid persecution within the state. Racial terror was a primary method used to discourage Black citizens from exercising their rights. And shortly after the release of the movie Birth of a Nation in the 1920s, the Ku Klux Klan established a San Francisco chapter, becoming the first iteration of the group in California, in San Francisco. Wow. Group members held rallies, initiation events, and public parades that were attended by thousands. The California KKK gained significant political influence during their resurgence through positions of power, and members exerted their authority as elected officials. District attorneys and police officers, law enforcement from nearly every California city had a KKK influence, including 25 San Francisco police officers. Wow. 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 Take a sip on that. Oh, goodness. Mm-mm-mm. So that's where our police department began. Imagine where it is today and where the numbers are. Okay. Okay, so on to page 14, slide 14. Scare tactics like harassment, vandalism, and arson were common tools used against Black Americans. The prevalence of white supremacy ideology created an atmosphere of fear for both Black citizens and white sympathizers that saw the racial caste system as morally unjust. At that same time, those who benefited from the racial hierarchy were able to maintain their role as bystanders and reap the benefits. The violence and subsequent silence surrounding the crimes committed against Black Californians demonstrates how white Californians viewed Black presence and home ownership as a threat to white dominance. This is all part of the interim report authored in part by Dr. Shirley Weber, um, who is now Secretary of State. I just want to remind everyone, this is Alicia Mayo here. I am on reading the second part of, not the second part, but this is the second episode of Clari-T Conversations presents San Francisco Reparations Unlocked. What do we know? Have you read the report? Who qualifies? If you have those questions, I'm trying to answer some of those questions by reading through the report along with you. Okay, so thanks for joining me here. I'll be continuing to read through the report each evening at 5 p.m. So please share this live stream with your friends and your family. Anyone who has had questions about reparations or who who feels some kind of way, either for or against it, and maybe they'll get some insight if they have not read the report. I'm reading the report tonight. And make sure you subscribe, follow, like, and share Clari-T Media on YouTube, on LinkedIn, on Facebook, and on any of your favorite platforms. I'm there streaming live right now. I'm even over there on Twitter, and I don't even visit Twitter that much. You know, those folks on Twitter need to know about what's happening in San Francisco. Okay. So that's what tonight is all about. Thank you again for joining me. All right, so let's continue here reading through the San Francisco African American Reparations Advisory Committee's draft report that will be submitted on March 14th to the San Francisco Board of Supervisors and to the Honorable Mayor London Breed for further consideration, and hopefully it'll make its way over to the desk of the governor of the state of California, Governor Gavin Newsom, and Dr. Shirley Weber, where they will all put a nice wet ink signature on it and make it legislation. All right. Anyway, okay. Most of the suburbs in San Francisco were known as sundown towns, where Black people were prohibited from living or being present after sunset. Racially restrictive covenants were commonplace throughout the city, which stipulated that only allowed white residents um, were only allowed to live on the property described within the deeds. Okay. So you couldn't be Black in a sundown town, and most of the suburbs in San Francisco were considered sundown towns, or sundown parts of the town. Okay. Imagine that. I can't even imagine that. Growing up in San Francisco, I just drive wherever I want to drive. I go wherever I want to go. But imagine that. Can you imagine that? I can't imagine that. I go where I want to go. I walk into any restaurant that I want to walk into, and I have a seat and I eat, and people stare like, what are you doing here? Well, if the menu is nice and the food looks good and I trust the chefs in the back, yeah, I'm going to eat. I'm going to walk into a store and patronize a store or whatever, I'm going to do what I want to do. But imagine Black people couldn't do that in San Francisco. I can't even imagine that. Anyway. Okay. Oh, goodness. The Department of Housing and Urban Development, HUD, could not investigate complaints of discrimination and lacked the enforcement authority to penalize the lawbreakers if they were breaking the laws around housing discrimination. And that housing discrimination continued 20 years later after the Supreme Court case of Shelley versus Kramer that deemed racially restrictive covenants were unconstitutional in 1948. Okay, but 20 years later, the discrimination continued, and really there was nothing that anyone could do to overturn any of the discrimination. And because of this, it continued into the 1970s and 1980s, and in 1988, an amendment was passed to reinforce the policy. This allowed HUD to initiate and pursue complaints with steeper penalties for cases of discrimination. Through this change, corrected inefficiencies in the 1968 Fair Housing Act, it had little impact on the decades of discrimination that racially segregated San Francisco. The legacy created from redlining and other discriminatory housing policies has placed a higher energy burden on African Americans. Yes, absolutely. More than any other racial group. And for example, yeah, we were evicted several times for no reason at all, other than, excuses like, oh, the landlord is taking over the property or something crazy like that. Yeah. And my mom and her three children, single mother, had to get up and go. And that was it. And there was no other recourse, no other way to protect herself. Today, Black homeowners pay more for residential energy bills, which can be attributed to the older energy energy insufficient housing African Americans were relegated to for generations. In 1945, California passed the Community Redevelopment Act, the CRA Act, which allowed for the destruction and redevelopment of blighted areas in the community. Each of the conditions that legally defined blight were products of the harms of residential segregation. Buildings in the neighborhoods where Black San Franciscans were legally able to live were most likely to be overcrowded or in poorer conditions than the spaces restricted by racial covenants. Under the guise of urban development, the city of San Francisco declared the Western Addition blighted, which provided just cause to destroy a large portion of the Fillmore. Prior to its destruction, the Fillmore was known as the Harlem of the West. Let me move on to slide 15. The Harlem of the West was an integrated neighborhood that was famous for its jazz venues and social clubs and hosted artists from the likes of Ella Fitzgerald, Billie Holiday, Louis Armstrong, and more. In total, the demolition closed 883 businesses, displaced 4,729 households, destroyed 2,500 Victorian homes, and damaged the lives of nearly 20,000 people, predominantly African Americans, if not all. In its aftermath, the city left the destroyed plots of land empty for years, despite the efforts of civil rights advocates and the passage of progressive bills like the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and the Fair Housing Act. Federal courts still found that San Francisco city housing authorities discriminated and maintained segregation. And yes, it did. And I remember those empty lots and walking through them, walking past them to and from school at Marina Junior High, along the 22 Fillmore bus route. Those lots stayed empty for years, even through my childhood. The urban renewal and, I'm sorry, I don't want to skip this paragraph. To this day, Black-owned homes are valued significantly less than white-owned homes within the San Francisco metropolitan area. Excuse me. A study in 2020 found that Black-owned homes are devalued by 29% compared to their white-owned counterparts. This trend makes Black neighborhoods and homes particularly vulnerable to gentrification. The urban renewal and gentrification that took place in San Francisco has created generational impact and decimated Black communities. One study from the National Community Reinvestment Coalition found that San Francisco was one of the most rapidly gentrifying cities from 2013 until 2017. Almost 90% of the currently gentrified areas in San Francisco were formerly redlined or deemed definitely declining by the Homeowners Loan Corporation. As a result of segregation, redevelopment, and rent spikes, the Black community has been forced to relocate from the city. In the 1970s, 10% of the San Francisco population identified as Black compared to the 5% today. The impact of Proposition 209. The destruction and disregard of Black owned businesses is prevalent to this day. In most major metropolitan areas across the country, including San Francisco, businesses in majority white areas receive federal loans at a greater rate than businesses in majority African American areas. This is an ongoing hindrance in California to equitable access and government contracting for Black people, women, and other marginalized identities. Is Proposition 209, a 1990, I guess that's a typo. Proposition 209 is a 1996 constitutional amendment banning affirmative action. Initially passed by a margin of 10 points, the stated intentions of Prop 209 was to ban discrimination and preferential treatment based on race, sex, national origin, amongst other things. The passage of Proposition 209 undermines Black owned businesses that seek to obtain public contracts with the state of California and local governments. The consequences of Prop 209's passage has been the systematic exclusion of people of color and women. And after its passage in 1996, Prop 209 caused state and local governments to end race-conscious contracting programs, which led to the loss of about $1 billion every year for minority and women-owned businesses. Prior to the bill's passage in the fiscal year 1994 and 1995, $519 million was allocated to minority and women-owned businesses. When California ended the program, only a few businesses got their contracts with the state back, and some never recovered. Additionally, Prop 209 has had adverse impacts for Black and brown people seeking access to public employment and initiated a precipitous decline in enrollment in California's University of California college system. In the city and county of San Francisco, about $200 million per year was lost in minority and women-owned contracts. And that's pretty serious. That's pretty devastating. This loss was caused both by Proposition 209 and the 2004 Coral Constitution case, which ended San Francisco's race conscious procurement program. All right, everybody, this is Alicia Mayo here of Clari-T Media. I just want to say thank you for joining me for another episode of San Francisco Reparations Unlocked. I am reading through the San Francisco African American Reparation Advisory Committee's draft report that they will submit to Honorable Mayor London Breed and to the San Francisco Board of Supervisors. I believe that this report will be submitted on March 14th, and we want you to show up and support the committee along with the other community activists who have been involved in the meetings and speaking up, including myself and anybody supporting Black folks in San Francisco and the reparations draft plan. Anybody who supports us, we want you to show up on March 14th on the steps of San Francisco City Hall. I don't exactly have the time, but I think the rally will begin around 12 noon, and it will maybe even earlier. If you get there at 11:30, just be safe. You probably won't miss much, but the rally will begin, and then the Board of Supervisors hearings will begin later that afternoon, late afternoon. I will get the times for you, and I will share all of the exact details with you probably tomorrow night when I will be on again for another round of reading through this report. But for now, let's take a quick little break just to do a little station identification and to remind you guys that you're watching Clari-T Media right here and how you can subscribe and support my platform. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. It's Alicia Mayo. I'll be back in just a few. Tune in weekdays to the Bay Area Mental Health Hour on YouTube, Instagram, and on Facebook. You'll find us covering issues surrounding your everyday coping skills and your mental health and wellness. And remember, your mental health matters as much as your physical health. Okay, I don't know if you guys heard any sound on that, but I didn't hear any sound. So uh, let me test something here. Yeah, let me test something here to see if I can get my sound going. Oh, there's some sound. Okay. Okay, we hear some music. And thanks to Elijah Baker, E.B. Baker, for that background music that I won't be penalized for by YouTube or Facebook. Okay, this is his music. He owns his music. Okay, and he let me use it. Blah blah blah. Nah 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 nah. Anyway. All right. Thank you again for joining me, everybody. This is Alicia Mayo of Clari-T Media. I'm the founder here at Clari-T Media, Black-owned media, all right, supported by the San Francisco Dreamkeeper Initiative. I just want to say thank you to everyone. All right, let me play a little bit of my, let me try to play another station identification. Okay, just bear with me here. Let's see if these machines are working. You know, I'm perfect, but these machines aren't. All right, be back in just a few.
If you'd like to be a guest or suggest show ideas, drop us an email or a direct message. We'd love to hear from you. Clari-T Media, human stories, grassroots solutions. Subscribe, like, follow, and share. The Bay Area Mental Health Hour, Clari-T Conversations, and We the People. Building trust for the first time. Out of chaos comes clarity. Clari-T Media.
Like a spot, just winning. Media life spinning. Media life spinning. Clarity. Yeah.
Black woman owned. Clari-T Media.
Black people.
Show your support for Black-owned media with a tax-deductible contribution today. And don't forget to visit Clari-T Media's tech and swag store for gear and supplies. Thank you.
Hi there, everybody. Alicia Mayo here. Thank you so much for joining me here on Clari-T Media. Let me adjust my camera here. I had to actually move my desk up a little bit. Okay, so we're reading through the San Francisco African American Reparations Advisory Committee's draft report that they will submit on March 14th to the mayor of San Francisco, Mayor London Breed, and to the San Francisco Board of Supervisors. The Board of Supervisors will look over the report. We'll read through the report like we're reading through the report. If they haven't already, they probably have. I hope they have, so they won't be wasting any time. And then they will decide whether or not it is ready to go to the state level. I believe that's the process in my head, you know, local, state, federal. And so, Governor Gavin Newsom, I heard, has his pen ready. And if the report makes enough sense, then maybe he will sign the report, or they will pass the legislation to make reparations legislation and policy and all of that. But, there's going to be a process from the Board of Supervisors and from the mayor to get it to Governor Gavin Newsom, and he has to go through that legislative process and maybe hearings, and then maybe we'll end up in Sacramento with our signs and our pictures of our grandparents and our people who you know pay the price and or didn't get paid. And we can show up and support each other in unity and support the legislators who support us, and just be present for the entire process. I think it's important for us to know what's happening. As much as we can be involved, we should be involved, even if it means just joining me here on my platform to read through the report. That is an act of support. Once you get educated, then you can participate some more in some kind of way, okay? Whether it's just showing up at San Francisco City Hall on March 14th on the steps of City Hall to support reparations for Black San Franciscans, or to show up in Sacramento to support the legislation and make your voices heard. Okay, that's how you can get involved in all of this, because what is good for one group is good for everyone. I promise you that. You probably already know that. So let's go on back to the report here and continue. We're on page 16, uh, where I was wrapping up the harm caused by Proposition 209 and the 2004 Coral Constitution case, which ended San Francisco's race conscious procurement program. Now, moving on to the child welfare system, citing or comments in the report. The child welfare system in San Francisco continues to separate families. The San Francisco County has sent the majority of its foster kids to other California counties every year for the past decade. According to the data from the UC Berkeley California Child Welfare Indicators Project, in July 2022, San Francisco placed 65% of its foster kids in a different county. Wow. Away from families and everything. That's awful. 65% of foster kids in San Francisco have been placed in different counties. This is almost double the state average of 33%. Understanding the racial demographics that exist within the child care system further demonstrates the racial disparity that remains prevalent across the Bay Area. In San Francisco, the percentage of Black children in foster care in 2018 was more than 25 times the rate of white children, and that is due in part to the drug epidemics that continue and all of the sick people, all of the people that need help, all of the mothers, all of the families that need help. Let me read that again. Oh, gosh. In San Francisco, the percentage of Black children in foster care in 2018 was more than 25 times the rate of white children. The kids sent away are effectively separated from their support network of family and friends and are dropped into a foreign environment with foster parents they often have not met before. Mm, mm, mm. Health outcomes. Discrimination in healthcare for Black Bay Area residents has negatively affected the community's access to basic services. As early as 1863, Black San Franciscans were banned from receiving treatment at medical facilities like the U.S. Marine Hospital. African Americans were confined to segregated sections of state hospitals also. And then in the 1970s, the Black Panther Party provided free community-based healthcare clinics to administer basic amenities and address the lack of service and medical discrimination experienced by Black Californians. At the clinics, medical professionals helped train healthcare workers to administer services to patients. However, local governments like the Oakland Police Department retaliated against this movement and harassed the Black Panther Party for soliciting clinic funds without proper permits. Healthcare discrimination against Black Californians is worsened by the fact that there are not enough Black physicians in California to meet the needs of the Black population. Black physicians represent less than 3% of the entire medical profession in California, and despite the African American population representing 6% of the state's population. Wow. The passage of Proposition 209 in California further limited this number by prohibiting the consideration of race, ethnicity, or national origin in public education, employment, and in contracting. As a result, within California's private medical schools, the proportion of Black students graduating fell from 6% in 1990 to 5% in 2019. In California, Black women are more likely to experience health complications during pregnancy, have premature births, die in childbirth, and lose their babies than their white counterparts. In San Francisco, Black babies have died at almost 5 times the rate of white babies in the past decade. A study has found that when a Black doctor is the primary care physician in these cases, the infant mortality rate is cut in half. Black LGBTQ Americans also suffer from adverse health conditions at higher rates than other demographics. Within the American West, the Black queer community is more likely to be uninsured and are more likely to be diagnosed with depression, asthma, diabetes, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, heart disease, and cancer. Additionally, a study in 2021 found that Black transgender women in the San Francisco Bay Area are at higher risk of suffering from hate crimes because of the intersectional effects of transphobia and racism. This demographic has a higher likelihood to be the victim of battery with a weapon compared to white transgender women who participated in the study. A legacy of institutional harms to San Francisco's Black communities. San Francisco's international reputation has a liberal destination for free thought and uninhibited opportunities in undetermined, I'm sorry, San Francisco's international reputation is undermined by its legacy of mistreatment and violence toward and targeted racism against Black Americans. Founded in 1776 under Spanish colonial rule and later established in the 1840s, San Francisco experienced its first notable boom as a port city, providing an entry to miners who had discovered gold up in the Alta California coast. Being a land of opportunity, innovation, and self made wealth is part of the city's identity and something that has driven its international acclaim and attraction. Despite the reputation of liberalism, San Francisco has consistently opposed limitations on who has access to the city's abundant wealth. Since its founding, Black people in San Francisco have faced significant barriers to full participation in its society and economy. Through efforts to control the physical movement and financial attainment of Black people, San Francisco and California more broadly imposed laws that enshrined white supremacy and ensured the racial subjugation of African American and other non-white citizens. Despite now being nearly 160 years away from the Emancipation Proclamation, the vestiges of chattel slavery in the United States deeply and directly continue to have a harmful effect on the current era social, economic, health, academic, legal, and cultural experiences and outcomes of Black and African American people in San Francisco. California and its localities meaningfully enforced and upheld slavery by perpetuating the racial caste system of subjugating Black Americans from the freedoms assured to them by the Declaration of Independence. The state's founders were pro-slavery. 36% of American born Californians in the 1850s were white Southerners who strategically sought statehood for California as a free state to avoid controversy and expedite access to federal resources. California's first elected governor, Peter Burnett, was a renowned racist who had established Oregon as a whites only state through its legislature in 1844 and attempted to do the same in California in 1849. His efforts failed because of the desire of pro slavery settlers to utilize and economically benefit from slave labor across the state. I'm going to switch out my glasses here. Bear with me, everybody. Still reading through this San Francisco African American Reparations Advisory Committee's draft plan that will be submitted to Mayor London Breed and to the San Francisco Board of Supervisors on March 14th. This is the first report. The second report is due July 2023, this July. Okay, despite now being nearly 160 years away from the emancipation oh, wait. Oh, okay, I read that. While neither San Francisco nor California formally adopted the institution of chattel slavery, the tenets of segregation, white supremacy, and systematic repression and exclusion of Black people were codified through legal and extra-legal social codes and judicial enforcement. Non-white people initially could not serve as witnesses in cases involving white defendants in California in 1852. Okay. Yeah, Black folks couldn't serve. Oh, wow. Oh, but the reverse. Okay. But the reverse. But the reverse. But the reverse. Wow. Crazy. I'm learning something. Non-white people initially could not serve as witnesses in cases involving white defendants in California. In 1852, California passed a Fugitive Slave Act that was harsher than the federal fugitive slave law, making California a more pro-slavery state than most other free states. Wow. Now that's page 17, okay? California passed a Fugitive Slave Act that was harsher than the federal fugitive slave law. Wow. Voting rights were not enacted for Black men until the late 1870s, and school segregation was ruled legal by the California Supreme Court in 1874. Did you know that? Let's go to page 18. Beyond the enforcement of slavery's interpersonal management and relationship in California, both individuals and organizations in California economically benefited from slave labor. Since the first enslaved Africans were brought to its shores in 1619, the United States was wholly supportive and dependent upon the enslavement of African people and their descendants as the vehicle that established and propelled the country's economy. In San Francisco, despite not technically enforcing slavery, slaveholders were allowed to enter and leave the state with their enslaved property, exploiting and further profiting from their unpaid labor within California's state lines across a broad spectrum of work, including but not limited to housekeeping, childcare, food service, and mining. San Francisco Slavery Era Disclosure Ordinance. Institutionally, today's financial wealth in San Francisco can be tied to profits procured during enslavement. In 2006, the San Francisco Board of Supervisors passed the Slavery Era Disclosure Ordinance, also known as SEDO, SEDO, authored by former District 10 Supervisor Sophie Maxwell. This ordinance enumerates the legacy of systemic the legacy of systemic harms that have disproportionately affected the Black community as a result of the practice of slavery. Okay, let me read that again. Okay, let me read that. Let me read that again. Let me read that again. Okay, this ordinance that was authored by the former District 10 Supervisor Sophie Maxwell. This ordinance enumerates the legacy of systemic harms that have disproportionately affected the Black community as a result of the practice of slavery in the United States. And it requires that the city contractors providing insurance or insurance services and financial services or textiles to the city must complete an affidavit verifying whether the contractor is its parent company or subsidiary has participated in or received profits from chattel slavery. All right, Miss Sophie Maxwell, thank you. If the company uncovers records that connect the business to chattel slavery, they are required to submit an affidavit to the city administrator that the business to chattel slavery, they are required to submit an affidavit to the city administrator that identifies, that identifies the names of each person subjected to slavery. Wow, each slaveholder and each person or entity who participated in the slave trade or derived profits from the slave trade mentioned in the records, or and number two, a description of the type of transactions, services, or other acts in evidence by the records, and three, the extent and nature of any profits from the slave trade evidence in the records. These documents are then made available to the public and included in a report to the mayor and the board of supervisors. Wow. Great work there, Miss Sophie Maxwell, former District 10 supervisor. CEDO was passed, authored and passed the ordinance. And again, that ordinance is called the Slavery Era Disclosure Ordinance. Slavery Era Disclosure Ordinance. And you can see that here on page 18. Let me enlarge that for you. Okay, and so I'm at the second to the last paragraph on page 18. The CEDO offers precedence for the city and county of San Francisco to acknowledge its role in economically benefiting from those affected by this historic injustice. In compliance with the City and County of San Francisco Slavery Disclosure Ordinance in 2006, the following companies have shared that their economic profits are historically tied to the institutions of chattel slavery, and they are Bank of America and U.S. Bank National Association. Okay, put a dog ear on page 18. Boom. Bank of America. Bank of America. I used to work for Bank of America. A lot of things happened during my employment at Bank of America, including some discrimination on the premises of one Embarcadero. Yes, that one Embarcadero, that huge location with some 26 bank teller windows, and all 26 windows have never been filled, but I can only imagine what is in the vaults. I'm glad that this San Francisco African American Reparations Advisory Committee has done their homework. They have done their homework, folks, and I'm reading through the work that they are reporting, or that they've done to bring us and prepare this report for the Board of Supervisors and the mayor. Wow. And I'll read this last paragraph. The ordinance also states that the city will suffer actual damages due to contractors' failure to comply with the ordinance. To date, no companies have provided any contributions to ameliorate the effects of slavery. Now, I have got to look up this word ameliorate. I have a feeling that that word came from Professor James Taylor, who is on the he's on this San Francisco African American Reparations Advisory Committee. Professor Taylor, was that your word? Ameliorate? Ameliorate. Okay. Come on, Google. Help us out here. I've got one more page that I'll read, but in just for entertainment purposes, let's see what Google can tell us about that word ameliorate. And in the meantime, um, I will include some music provided by none other than Eddie Crow. This is original music created for Clari-T Media. Just check it out. All right, here it comes. Let's see. Let's see. Let's see. Okay.
Clari-T Media. Clari-T. Yeah. Listen up. Black people. Ice Clean, Smith & Wesson Beam. It's a media theme. Clarity inspiring. Requirements never tiring. Laundry list you never miss. No wishing. Best media on display. Problem solved out the way. Magnitude, Godzilla. Selling more power than Jay Thriller. Getting back.
All right. Thank you, Eddie Crow, for this theme song, this theme hip hop song. And it is, he calls this spinning. You know, most media institutions spin their narratives, right? Anyway, thank you, Eddie Crow. So now let's go to the meaning of ameliorate. I was hoping not to forget it. Okay, let's see. Define ameliorate. I got music going on. Hold on. We're almost done here, folks. We're almost done. We're almost done. Define ameliorate.
Definition of ameliorate. Formal. Make something bad or unsatisfactory better.
Okay. To make it better. Chattel slavery? Nah, nothing can make that better. They're just going to have to forget about it. Okay. And we cannot go back. We cannot repeat any of what has happened. And that's what San Francisco Reparations is all about. And that's what the Reparations Advisory Committee, the San Francisco African American Reparations Advisory Committee, has talked about in this report. Some 60 pages in this report, including not repeating the harms that have been done, not to mention the amounts that, well, that's coming in the next report that is due in July this year. Okay. The amounts and what the formula is and all of that is supposed to be coming up in July. In the meantime, we've been able to cover a lot here in just 2 days. I have read through 20 pages of the report. We have 40 more pages to go. I think we can do it for the rest of this week. I think we can get to the end of the report where hopefully then the chair of the San Francisco African American Reparations Advisory Committee, Eric McDonald, might join us, or the vice chair, Ms. Tanisha Hollins. Maybe they both will join us at the end of the report reading or at some time during the reading so that we can ask questions. If we have questions, I can open up the StreamYard comments sections so that you guys can make your comments on YouTube, on Facebook, wherever you are, and we can read through those comments. Okay, so that's coming up towards the end of the week. But for now, I want to read through page 19 and then wrap it up here, folks. Okay. So this is it. We're going to move on to page 19 there. And let me expand it for you there. And this page 19 covers strengthening the San Francisco Slavery Era Disclosure Ordinance, also known as CEDO. The fund relies on voluntary contributions. What fund? Hold on, let me go back here. 1918, page 18. Okay, let's see. Okay, so the CEDO offers precedent for the city and county of San Francisco to acknowledge its roles in economically benefiting from those affected by this historical injustice. In compliance with the city and county of San Francisco slavery disclosure ordinance, the following companies have shared their economic profits. They have shared that their economic profits are historically tied to the institution of chattel slavery: Bank of America and U.S. Bank National Association. The ordinance also states that the city will suffer actual damages due to contractors' failure to comply with this ordinance. To date, no companies have provided any contributions to ameliorate the effects of slavery. They have not provided any contributions. We're coming. We're coming for you. Okay. So, this fund relies on voluntary contributions. Okay. So they're not volunteering to give up any of it, of course. And San Francisco's CEDO establishes, or the Slavery Disclosure Ordinance, establishes a fund to promote healing and assist in remedying depressed economic conditions, poverty, unequal education opportunity, and other legacies of slavery era among the population of the city. And it encourages companies affected by the ordinance to contribute to the fund. However, contributions are voluntary, and to date, there have been 0 contributions to this fund. Wow. The ordinance would have, well, I'm not surprised. Okay, moving right along. The ordinance would have much more of an impact if contributions were mandatory. I agree. Considerable exceptions carved out in legislation. This is the second paragraph, folks, on page 19. Contractors in a number of categories are exempted from this legislation, including companies that provide medical or dental insurance to city employees and administrators of the city's retirement fund. Holding these companies to different standards weakens the effectiveness or efficacy of the CEDO. Yes, it's a double standard. In order to have a greater impact, every company that has disclosed an economic benefit from slavery to the city and county of San Francisco should contribute a percentage of annual profits. Absolutely. And that's in the San Francisco African American Advisory Reparations Acts, a committee, the San Francisco African American Reparations Advisory Committee's recommendations. What a long title. Okay. SF-ARC. SF-ARC. SF-AAR-ARAC. SF-ARAC. SF-ARAC. Okay. SF-AARAC. Okay. So now, in order to have a greater impact, every company should disclose an economic benefit from slavery to the city and county of San Francisco and they should contribute a percentage of annual profits. Okay, here's the last paragraph. Passive enforcement mechanism. The San Francisco CEDO includes language outlining an enforcement mechanism through the Office of the City Administrator. However, the fines for noncompliance appear to be lenient and the disclosures are voluntary. To make this ordinance truly effective, there should be more strict enforcement and harsher financial penalties for noncompliance, which can be allocated to funding reparations. Okay, so the committee's recommendations are in bold letters there that you can see on the screen. Okay, on that last page, which was page 19. Okay, guys. So I will include this Black migration timeline on the next page as my last page. Okay, just because it's interesting and easier to read through. I think my mouth is My tongue is sticking to the roof of my mouth now. Okay. Good evening, everybody. hmm It's a good evening because we are reading the draft plan put together, created by the San Francisco African American Reparations Advisory Committee. And I introduced the committee last night. And if you'd like to learn more about the committee, you can go to the website, and I will type that in to the banner here. It is sfreparations.org. Go to SF, hold on, www.sfreparations, San Francisco Reparations.org. Okay, you can go to San Francisco Reparations.org. There is the website there on the screen, and you can get more information about the committee, who the committee members are, who the chair is, who the vice chair is, and you can also learn more about the subcommittees, and they, include the health subcommittee and education, or the health committees and the education committees, and there are subcommittees. I think there are subcommittees within the committees. And I'm also looking forward to having the chair and the vice chair of the reparations committee here on Clari-T Media's platform by the end of the week, I hope. If not tomorrow, maybe we'll be visited by someone. I will be on the air at 5 p.m. again tomorrow to read through more of the report, and we've got about 40 more pages to go through the report. And so this will be the last page for the evening. As I said earlier. So let's go through this timeline. Check out the timeline here. In 1849 until 1855, most African Americans come to San Francisco as enslaved people working in the gold mines, and they migrate to San Francisco seeking success from the opportunities of the California gold rush. By 1852, Third Baptist Church is the first Black Baptist church west of the Rockies. It is established in 1852. Wow. 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 That's major. In 1866, Mary Ellen Pleasant, an early Black millionaire and funder of the Underground Railroad, sues the Omnibus Railroad Company and the North Beach and Mission Railroad Company for ejecting her and two other Black women from a city streetcar. Sounds familiar. Black women being ejected from a train. Napa, California, in the 20th century. This case with Mary Ellen Pleasant in 1866 outlawed segregation in the city's public conveyances. In 1915, Oakland, San Francisco NAACP, or the National African American or Alliance of Colored People. Yeah. Chapter, something like that. National Association of African, or the NAACP. Ooh. Okay, y'all go. See? Even me. Even I forgot. Well, it comes with age, right? The NAACP chapter protested the film Birth of a Nation in 1915. Don't get on my case because I can't. The National Advancement for African American Color, no, the National Association, the National American Association for Colored People chapter. Anyway, that says a lot, huh? Doesn't it? Yeah, they protested the movie Birth of a Nation in 1915. That's great. That was great. That was important. All right. And in 1945, the San Francisco Black population booms in the 1940s after Black Southerners come to work in the city's shipyards to meet the industrial demands of World War II, including my grandfathers, both grandfathers and grandmothers, until 1955. It was also a time between 1945 and 1955 that the jazz culture in the Fillmore district flourished during this time and was the main performance venue for artists like Etta James, Billie Holiday, and Dizzy Gillespie. In 1957, the San Francisco Giants baseball legend Willie Mays is refused a home in St. Francis Wood because of his race in 1957. And in 1968, the Black Panther Party and the Peace and Freedom Party announced a political coalition. The Peace and Freedom Party a slate of candidates includes the Black Panthers' Kathleen Cleaver, who is nominated to run in California's 18th Assembly District in San Francisco, and Bobby Seale, a candidate for the 17th Assembly District seat in Oakland. That was in 1968. I will say that one of my professors at Laney Junior College is Desi Woods Jones, who is a former member of the uh, assembly, and was also she also sat on the committee, the Ways and Means Committee, in the United States Legislature in Washington D.C. I think I said that right. Okay, you guys, bear with me here. And in 1969, Robert Chrisman and Nathan Hare of San Francisco published the first issue of The Black Scholar in November. And Mr. Dr. Nathan Hare of San Francisco is a Facebook friend of mine. And I did tag Mr. Hare, I did tag him, and I hope that he is tuning in. Please forgive me for any of my inconsistencies or my mistakes along the way as I read through the San Francisco African American Reparation Advisory Committee's draft plan that will be submitted to the San Francisco Board of Supervisors on March 14th and to the Honorable Mayor London Breed. March 14th, please join us on the steps of City Hall in unity to support this draft plan and reparations for Black San Franciscans. Okay, please be there. Be there by 11:30, 12 o'clock, noon, and join us March 14th. Okay, let's see. So here on the timeline, at 1970, Black San Franciscans represent 13.4% of the city's total population, an all-time high in 1970. The city's Black population would continue to decline through the 1970s. All right, and here at the bottom of page 20, we'll begin the Black migration content or highlights. Let's see. Yeah, and that continues through page 21, page 22, and page 23. So let's end this evening's broadcast for now. Thank you so much for sticking with me here as I read through this report. It is a deep and thoroughly researched report. Thank you to the committee, the San Francisco Reparations, African American Reparations Advisory Committee. Thank you all for doing all of this work to create this report that will be submitted to all of the folks involved in making this policy happen for Black San Francisco. Thank you all for joining me here on Clari-T Media. I'm Alicia Mayo. I've been here reading now since 6 p.m. 5 p.m. So I've gone a little bit further than I expected. It was my pleasure to be able to read through this report. I'd like for the public to join me here by including any comments you have online, and let me check. Let me go to Facebook right now, go to all of my media platforms where I'm streaming this live stream broadcast, and I'll see if there are some comments or questions. Let's see. Thank you, Jay Ren. Uh, let's see here. Let's see. No, nothing there. That was a little feedback. Let's see. All right. I don't see any questions. Okay. So if you see this broadcast a little later and you have questions, please include them on the comment stream. I'll be sure to write those questions down so that when the chair of the San Francisco African American Reparations Advisory Committee joins us, I'll be sure to ask those questions, or the vice chair when she is here. Possibly we can include some live public comments. But for now, you guys take care of yourselves. All right. It's Tuesday night. Take a load off, have a bubble bath, do something nice for yourselves. And remember that this is Black History Month. And so we should all just be joyous in some way or another. Go and have some fun, do something great for yourself and for your family, for your little ones. Um, I will be back tomorrow evening at 5 p.m. to continue to read through this report with all of you. Again, if you have any comments or suggestions, you can leave them on any of the platforms. You can, slide in my DM, or you can send me an email. And let's see, where's that email address that I want you guys to send any comments to? Okay. There you go. Also, if you're interested in advertising or promoting your business or event with Clari-T Media Digital Marketing and Brand Strategy Solutions, just reach out to me at Alicia R. Mayo at claritmedia.org. That's Alicia R. Mayo. That's Alicia Rose Mayo. Alicia R. Mayo at clarity.com. Yes. And I will share the San Francisco Reparations website. Oh, there it was there. There it is. It's sfreparations.org. Go to that website to find out more about the Reparations Committee meetings. There's a link there that will take you to the meetings and the dates and times and where you can register and all of that to see what's happening with the meetings and when they're having their next round of meetings. Okay. So thank you again to everyone for tuning in tonight to tonight's San Francisco Reparations Unlocked, the reading of the draft plan and report. We are on page 20 now. We've read through 20 pages of the report between yesterday and today. If you missed yesterday's reading, you can go back and watch it here on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on Twitter, or on YouTube, and check out the reading. Close your eyes, lay back, and just listen to me read it. If you don't want to read all of the 60 pages, it is a lot to read. And hopefully I'm reading it in a way that's easy for you to understand. We will have some of the committee members eventually join us for question and answers. And, so make sure you guys tune in and follow me in this effort to educate everyone and to share all of this very important information around San Francisco's Reparations Advisory Committee and the draft plan and the legislation that is to come. Okay. Again, this is Alicia Mayo of Clari-T Conversations, Clari-T Media. Thanking all of you for joining me here. Thank you so much for being here. I will see you all tomorrow evening at 5 p.m., same place, same time. Okay. All right. Okay. Let's see. I want to leave with some music by Mikhail London. He's a local artist. Him and Juan Blair created this one um, for me and the Bay Area Mental Health Hour. And I hope you enjoy it. You guys take care, all right? I'll see you later, okay? I will see y'all later, okay? Okay. All right. Thanks for tuning in. Tune in weekdays to the Bay Area Mental Health Hour on YouTube, Instagram, and on Facebook. You'll find us covering issues surrounding your everyday coping skills and your mental health and wellness. And remember, your mental health matters as much as your physical health.
If you'd like to be a guest or suggest show ideas, drop us an email or a direct message. We'd love to hear from you. Clari-T Media, human stories, grassroots solutions. Subscribe, like, follow, and share. The Bay Area Mental Health Hour, Clari-T Conversations and We the People. Building trust for the first time. Out of chaos comes clarity. Clari-T Media.
Rock with a few, drip lit like a spotlight. Just winning, media life spinning.